The Roberts Court has allowed Donald Trump to fire FTC Commissioner Rebecca Slaughter in an order that is widely interpreted as sounding the death knell of a nearly 100-year-old precedent protecting the independence of that agency. But the Roberts Court goes even farther in a 6-3 decision because they ask a question that, if they answer no, could be the end of independent agencies in the United States as we know it. My name is Adam Klasfeld, and you're watching All Rise News here on Legal AF on the Midas Touch Network. And the decision that I'm talking about today is Trump v. Slaughter, where a 6-3 conservative supermajority allowed Trump to fire Rebecca Slaughter, but also certified 2 questions for when they hear this case on the merits. And the devil is in the details, so I'm going to read those questions now. Number 1, they want to know, quote, whether the statutory removal protections for members of the Federal Trade Commission violate the separation of powers, and if so, whether Humphrey's Executor v. United States should be overruled, end quote. Now, that is the 1935 Supreme Court decision that found that it was constitutional for Congress to create the FTC in a way that it would be beyond political interference by the president. That's been law of the land since 1935. And the Supreme Court is asking whether they should formally overturn it, while they have allowed Trump to effectively trample all over it. Here's the second question that the Supreme Court asks. 2, whether a federal court may prevent a person's removal from public office either through relief at equity or at law. Now, take a moment for that to sink in. They are asking whether a federal court, any federal court, anywhere in the land, may prevent a person, any person's removal from a public office through relief at equity or at law. If the president decides to fire a person who is in public office, can a court stop it? Here's what the dissent says. It's a dissent of all 3 justices, led by Justice Elena Kagan. Here's what Elena Kagan wrote. Quote, earlier this year, the same majority, by the same mechanism, by which she means the emergency docket, permitted the president to fire without cause members of the National Labor Relations Board, the Merit System Protection Board, and the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Congress, as everyone agrees, prohibited each of these presidential removals. And that is absolutely true. There is no controversy whatsoever that Trump firing people from these positions violated the express will of Congress, that Congress created all of these agencies that to prevent the president from having the ability to interfere with those agencies' leaders politically and oust them from their position for any reason. But the Supreme Court has let Trump do just that in all of those cases. And we're going to go down this list. First, starting with the FTC, Rebecca Slaughter. Rebecca Slaughter was appointed to that position, by the way, by Donald Trump during Donald Trump's first term. She remained in that 7-year term during the Biden presidency. And the statute that created the FTC says, quote, any commissioner may be removed by the president for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. And that's the FTC. Moving on to the National Labor Relations Board. Trump fired NLRB chair Glenn Wilcox. She was appointed by Biden. The statute says, quote, any member of the board may be removed by the president upon notice and a hearing for neglect of duty or malfeasance in office, but for no other cause. Now she was yanked from the board for no cause, no notice, no hearing. Her firing explicitly allowed by the Roberts Court. Merit Systems Protection Board. Trump fired MSPB member Kathy Harris, a Biden appointee. The statute says, quote, any member may be removed by the president only for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. The Supreme Court allows the firing without a demonstration for cause. Consumer Product Safety Commission, 3 Democrats on the commission purged by Donald Trump. The statute, quote, any member of the commission may be removed by the president for neglect of duty or malfeasance in office, but for no other cause. The Supreme Court allowed them to be purged, cause Trump said so. Justice Kagan, in her dissent again, quote, Trump may now remove, so says the majority, though Congress said differently, any member he wishes for any reason or no reason at all, and he may thereby extinguish the agency's bipartisanship and independence, end quote. Now, what does this mean for the Federal Reserve? Because remember, the Federal Reserve is that agency where the Supreme Court recently said that's a red line. They're a different type of agency. They were specially constructed to be maintaining independence because we want the independence of the Federal Reserve because it has so much importance for the economic health and well-being of the United States. Here's what the Roberts Court said when people warned this is a slippery slope. If you let these firings happen, the Federal Reserve is next. And here's what the Roberts Court wrote back in May. Quote, respondents Gwynne Wilcox and Kathy Harris contend that arguments in this case necessarily implicate the constitutionality of for-cause removal protections for members of the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors or other members of the Federal Open Market Committee. We disagree. The Federal Reserve is uniquely structured, quasi-private entity that follows in the distinct historical tradition of the first and second banks of the United States. End quote. They said, we disagree. Really? Because it doesn't really seem certain that they disagree anymore. That was in May. And now they're asking whether any judge can intervene if they're in any person's removal from a position. To be clear, the Roberts Court is now questioning whether any federal judge anywhere can stop a person's removal from public office, either through relief or at equity or at law. That's extremely broad language, and it could potentially doom the lawsuits brought by Maureen Comey, the former federal prosecutor who prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and was fired without any cause explained whatsoever other than Trump's Article II authority, or the FBI agents who were purged from office, leaders, very respected leaders from FBI bureaus, any head of any independent agency who has been suing over this. Humphrey's executor may be doomed, but it's still technically the law of the land until the Supreme Court formally overrules it on the merits. Yet, as Justice Kagan said, the Roberts Court just let Trump violate it until they formally overturn it. Quote, our emergency docket should never be used, as it has been this year, to permit what our own precedent bars. Still more, it should not be used, as it also has been, to transfer government authority from Congress to the president, and thus to reshape the nation's separation of powers, end quote. Pay attention to this case, because it could mean the end of independent government agencies as we've known them for nearly a century. And it could hand vast powers to Trump as he hopes to reshape the government in his image. I'm Adam Klasfeld. Once again, you've been watching All Rise News on Legal AF on the Midas Touch Network. And to get in-depth factual reporting that tells you what's in the statute, that tells you the facts of the case and the history of the case, visit www.allrisenews.com and become a subscriber. If you become a paid subscriber, you support the work of fully independent journalism like mine to be able to, with full independence, tell you what's really going on. And if you want to watch other videos like this, You can become a subscriber both to All Rise News and the Legal AF channel.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.